Hey, good morning to everybody. Happy Wednesday. It's Daryl here. It's bright and freaking early, man. You know it. It's 3:30 a.m. here in Connecticut on the East Coast. Okay, this is going to be a recovery video. The purpose of this video is I can't overestimate. I can't express anymore how much better. I cannot believe how good my life is. Back when I was using, I honestly didn't even think it was possible to become clean again. After 2.5 decades, like I've told you guys this before, and I still remember this moment clear in my head. I had been up all night for a couple nights. I think I was going through opioid withdrawals, and it was morning, about 6, 7 in the morning, and I looked out my window, and I was living next to a gas station at that point, and I hadn't slept in days. I was withdrawing and everything, throwing up, and I saw people going to work, fueling up their cars, getting coffees. And at that moment, I felt so disconnected from the world. Like, because I looked at them and I totally forgot what that was like to go to work, to fuel up the car, to pay for coffee. I felt like I was living on Mars. Or I felt like I was I felt like I was a Martian living on the Earth. I felt so disconnected from reality. I couldn't even remember what it was like. I was like, I couldn't even, like, how do they do that? How do they go to work? How do they, how do they have money? It was just, everything was just so foreign to me, and it was a terrible, terrible feeling. And I would have never imagined how freaking fantastic the last 16.5 years of my life have been now that I'm clean and sober. Recovery is possible, man. It is better. Living clean and sober is better than I could have ever imagined. Okay, so many things happened back when I was using that. They still pop back into my head. And this morning, I don't know what made this pop into my head, but I remember this. There's literally dozens of these episodes. Okay, I lived in a small town. I'll tell you the town. It was Watertown, Connecticut. It was a small town of about 25,000 people, and there was a statewide narcotics task force, the Connecticut Statewide Narcotics Task Force, and it involved Watertown and a few other smaller or same-sized towns: Naugatuck, Connecticut, Watertown, Connecticut, Middlebury, Connecticut, Waterbury, Connecticut, and they formed the Statewide Narcotics Task Force, and they had officers from all these agencies, like hardcore SWAT type guys working in this statewide narcotics task force. Okay, that being said, at that point I lived in a 3-family house in a suburban neighborhood. There was a 3-family house, and there was a lot of single-family houses. Nice neighborhood. I lived up on the third floor, and I could look down into my neighbor's yard. It was a 1-family house, and it was only, I'd say about it was about 20 feet to the fence, and then the house was the next door house was right there. And there was always this, it was a brown Crown Vic in the driveway. There was always this brown Crown Vic in the driveway. It was a very nice house. He kept his house very nice. He had a Harley. He went out with his pretty little blonde wife on the Harley and everything. And I used to be up in the 3rd floor, and I would be constantly up for days, smoking crack, using cocaine, having gang members come to that house, going up the 3 flights in the back, parking their cars and their Harleys out on the other side of the house, on my driveway, coming upstairs, delivering drugs to me at 2 in the morning, 6 in the morning, 8 in the morning. Right? Okay, now here's the part. Just out of the irony or karma of the universe, the person that lived in that house was a member of the Statewide Narcotics Task Force. I could look out my window with my crack pipe and see this, basically what was I considered my arch enemy windows right. I assume it was his bedroom window and probably his living room window, with curtains right there. I could look into his backyard, his swimming pool. I could see when him and his wife went swimming and got on the Harley. And I'm assuming it was vice versa, that he could look up to the 3rd floor, because I didn't have curtains. I just had mini blinds. And, and when you're that high, you don't, well, sometimes you get paranoid. You're either too paranoid or not paranoid enough. And I'm sure he got an eyeful of a lot of, the lights were on day and night for weeks, and he knew what was going on. Okay, there was a bar a couple miles away that I frequented. It was a little dive bar called Bill's Friendly Cafe. It no longer exists, but it was anything but friendly. It was a small dive bar, and here's the sad thing: most of the people that went there, I've looked these people up. Most of the people that went there and people that own the bar, the sons that worked at the bar are all gone. They've all passed away from accidents, overdoses, and suicides. Seriously. This was back in the, I'd say around, this was before the year 2000. In the year 2000, I moved out of that town. I pretty much had to move out of that town because I'm going to do more stories on this because I had gotten a rep with the statewide narcotics task force, and this is part of the reason why. Okay, so I would go to this bar. It got to the point. It started out where people would use cocaine in the bathrooms, you know, and they'd have a pool table and, you know, Leonard Skinner on the. It was a hick bar. Leonard Skinner on the jukebox and fights out in the street. The bar was at an intersection. I'll show it to you here. This is the bar. It's actually a little bar. There's a back door. There's a back door with a porch, and people used to go out there and smoke pot right on the back porch. This is the front door. There'd be fights out in the street. And I would park my car over here across on the side of the street. Okay. So I was in there one afternoon, and, you know, as usual, there's a payphone, and people are making calls to dealers, getting cocaine delivered right to the bar. They'd you'd see them run out to the parking lot, get it, come back in, go run into the bathroom. It had gotten to the point where people were actually smoking crack sitting at the bar. The bartender was using at that time, some of the bartenders. And that's it. It had turned into a full-blown drug dive where the people that didn't use stopped going there. It was at a bad point. And, you know, I think it was a weekend day, and there was a lot of activity, and we go out on the back porch and smoke doobies and go back in and wait for our deliveries, and, you know, just constant drug use. And I had to go. I was going to go home, I think, because I'd usually take my drugs and go home, being kind of selfish, being that far into my addiction. And I went to go out to my car. I walked out the back door here and went over to my car. And I looked over in this parking lot. There was a barber shop over here, and there's a parking lot over here, the barber shop parking lot. And I recognized the car over here. I was like, wow, that car looks like that brown Crown Vic next door to me. The statewide narcotics task force, that cop, you know, there was nobody sitting in it. And I'm at my car door here, and I'm looking over here, and I'm like, yeah, I swear that's the car. You know, what's he at the barbershop? So I still can't believe I did this. So I was like, I gotta see. So I got a hunch. This is why I trust my gut. I got a gut feeling right at that moment. There was no heads in the car. Nobody sitting in the car. It was on the other side. You know, he was probably getting a haircut. But I got a gut feeling. And I walked over slowly to the car. And I look in the front. And then I think there was a radio, like a cop radio. And I look in the back seat. And what is in the back seat? The next door neighbor, the cop from the statewide narcotics task force, hiding, laying down on the back seat with long-range binoculars in his hands, looking up at me, hiding, laying down in the back seat. And I'm just like, oh man, I practically pooped my pants at that moment. I'm pretty sure I just went, hi, you know, and then walked away. Went back to my car. I didn't even look behind me. I don't know what he did. He probably just laid down. He was probably still just laying on the back seat, swearing to himself. And I'm like, oh my God, I am in so much trouble. He's going to come arrest. I'm getting arrested now. You know, I stumbled across his surveillance. I didn't look back. I drove home. As soon as I got home, I did what typical addicts do. You know, I called up and warned my buddies. You know, as soon as the payphone rang, I said, guys, stop what you're doing. Get out of there. There's a cop. There's a cop undercover in the barber's parking lot. And none of them believed me. Not one. Yeah, sure, Daryl. Go smoke some more. Not one person. To this day, they probably still don't believe me. I was the only one that saw this. And, you know, I started throwing stuff down my toilet, flushing stuff. Nothing ever, I didn't hear anything more that day. and nobody else believed me. But it was the oddest situation. You know, there was the gut feeling. You know, I thought it was the car. Nothing in particular. Then something made me walk over. Like I said, this is where I've learned to trust my gut feeling. And I'll be damned, he was laying in the back seat, surveilling, because like I said, they used to smoke doobies and stuff. So he was watching over here with the binoculars. And I ran into this officer many more times, and had many more close scrapes where it got to the point where they knew what I was doing. They just hadn't caught me red-handed, and it was getting them very angry, and I was becoming a focal point of their investigations. And I'm just so much more thankful. Life is so much better. I've told you guys before, I was working out in the exercise room here, and guy came in, we started talking, you know, he's a good dude, you know. And I'm usually very standoffish with other guys. I don't trust guys, because what happened to me when I was younger, I got molested by a cop. And I find out, I'm walking out in the street a couple days later, and a cop car pulls up to me, and he goes, "Hey, Daryl." And I find out, the good dude I was working out with here, this just happened a couple months ago, and he was a cop, you know, and he's a good dude, you know. And I just, you know, things have changed. That's what I'm trying to say. And life is so much better now. I'm not saying that all cops are good guys, but it feels so much better being on the right side of things and living the right kind of life and being part of society again. I'll never forget what it felt like to see those people gassing up in front of the gas station, and I felt so, it was the scariest, most terrible feeling I ever had. I couldn't remember what that was like anymore. You know, a normal day. It was totally foreign to me, and it was one of the scariest things I ever felt. All right, recovery is possible. I've been clean and sober for 16 and a half years. It's the best life I've ever had. Have a good Wednesday. Hey, what's happening, everybody? Happy Wednesday, happy Thursday. If you're watching, I'm not sure when I'm going to clip this little movie review. I'm not sure what video what I'm gonna show it. So happy Wednesday, happy Thursday. Anyway, I bet you guys thought I was gonna totally forget about the movie reviews. I was just gonna do one and then forget about it. Right? No such thing. I'm going to continue doing these movie reviews. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about Wakanda Forever. Okay, let's see where to start here. I don't want to tell you guys too much. This was a fantastic movie. Fantastic. I'm a big fan of Marvel, the Marvel Universe. Big fan. DC, not so much. Suicide Squad was probably one of my favorite DC movies. But anyway, great movie. It's the best Wakanda movie. In my opinion, the best Wakanda movie so far. Let's see. What can I tell you guys about this without giving too much away? Obviously, Chadwick Boseman passed away, so they had to deal with his character kind of passing. I don't want to give you guys too much away. Spoiler alert here. But they had to deal with his character kind of passing away in the movie. A great memorial towards the end of the movie for Chadwick Boseman. I won't tell you guys any more than that. I don't want to spoil it. But at the end of the movie, fantastic. The thing I liked about this movie was, okay, there was the good guys. Like his sister, T'Challa's sister. T'Challa was Chadwick Boseman's character. His sister kind of took over and tried to fill his shoes, so to speak. And there was, they were the good guys, right? Wakanda. And they have vibranium, they're super metal. And then there's the bad guys. And they're kind of like descendants of the Maya, okay? And then there's the super bad guys, which was the U.S. government, which I freaking love, man. I think there was one point in this movie where Navy SEALs, the mercenaries, got caught and brought before T'Challa's sister, and they were all bound up because they were trying to steal the vibranium. I won't give away more than that. The thing I liked about this is, for a while, I didn't know who to root for. Like, Wakanda was the heroes, but I was rooting for let's see, his name is Namor. Namor he was the head of this underwater kingdom, descendants of the Maya. And I just loved I was rooting for this group. There was a big battle between them and the Wakandans, and the cool thing was I was kind of switching back and forth. You know, I wanted this side to win, but I kind of like this side too. You know, I was ambiguous. It was, you know, it kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time. Like I said, at the end of the movie, I don't want to give anything away, but at the end of the movie is fantastic. By far the best, in my opinion, the best Wakanda movie. The best Wakanda movie so far. I'm going to review this movie today. I haven't watched this yet, but it sounds, at first it looked boring. Juniper, okay? It looked really boring, but then I read the back, and it sounds very interesting. This lady was a war correspondent, and apparently she's got a drinking problem. See, that interests me, being in recovery. And her troubled grandson comes to live with her. So I'm gonna let you know. At first, I wasn't even gonna take it out, but I'll let you know. This is the next movie I'm gonna review. I would highly recommend Wakanda Forever. Out of 5 thumbs up, I give it a full 5 thumbs up. Have a good Wednesday.